Hello and welcome everybody to New Earth Consciousness. Tanya here, and I'm sitting here with Rae Calnan. She is a spiritual healer, and her website is radiantangelenergy.co.uk. And I'm excited to have her on the show. We're going to talk about purpose, sovereignty, divine presence. And so I'm excited to dive into this. So thank you for being here, Rae.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do angelic Reiki, future past life work, energy work. You work with oracle cards, and you have your passion is really to help people find their true purpose, to step into sovereignty, and to become that to embody their true divine presence. And I guess first I want to dive into, your upbringing was very unique. When I talk to other people, most people I find in general are not always, didn't grow up in a supportive environment when it comes to finding their spirituality. Oftentimes most of us kind of grew up in maybe a more of a suppressive environment when it came to really connecting with the divine or connecting with our spiritual gifts. They get shut down or whatever. But you grew up with a mother who was a palm reader, and I'm curious to know if you could share with the audience like what that was like growing up.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Yeah, as you said, my mum did palmistry, she did psychometry, my aunt read tarot cards, and my dad was quite happy to drive my mum to spiritualist churches, and obviously me and my sister had to go along because you can't leave children by themselves. That was really great because it meant we were around people all the time that weren't afraid of spirits or anything like that. And these spiritual church that my mum and dad went to was very inclusive, especially of children. And me
Mm.
and my sister were quite clever in that we learned to keep quiet, which meant we got to stay up later with the adults. So we would hear more stuff going on, and then
Mm.
we'd be rewarded because it'd be like, oh, they're such nice, quiet children. So it's a win-win for us
Mm.
with that. But it was great because if we came across anything that might be classed as frightening, then that was sort of like spoken about. Um, and because I was aware of everything, where we lived, because we lived in a block of flats, they actually had a children's play area and underground washing machines, a laundry room.
Mm.
And I have to say that was very spooky and scary. It's kind of like you knew there was energy and spirits around, even if you weren't quite sure what it was or who it was. And some of it was a little bit dark. But having the support of my mum, my dad, my sister, it it really helped all of us to be in that space and be accepting of what might not be normal out there. And my mum and dad were so supportive in the fact that me and my sister were never ever christened. They both decided that it would be up to us to decide if we wanted to follow a religion when we were older or not.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Very cool. So were you aware of your gifts at a young age?
I wouldn't say obviously. When I look back now, subconsciously, yes, but consciously, no. I just had an absolutely wonderful, fun-filled childhood that, was a little bit spooky, but really loving.
Mm.
And me and my sister were never treated any different from each other. And, my mum and dad put up with a lot of questions from me because I was one of those children that would ask questions, you know, I know you can't do that. Well, why can't I do it? Unless you gave me an answer, I would keep going on and on and on. So I was
Mhm.
very much an inquiring child, and my parents supported that, and they tried to answer the best they could for a child to understand.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so you you shared with me that at some point, fast forward into your adulthood, you you went to Peru, and that was like this pivotal point in your life. Share with us like what was happening at that time.
Yeah, certainly. So I've always, as I grew older, I dabbled in runes, in tarot, all that kind of thing. And then when I was in my 20s, I had a card reading. So, I'd go and have regular card readings. And the guy who read the card said, "Oh, I can see you going on a life-changing journey." And he kind of like mentioned, he thought it's going to be somewhere like Sri Lanka. So very intrigued. So I went and looked online, early days of the internet, and I went on to Lonely Planet and to look up Sri Lanka, but they were actually doing an article on Peru. So I read through that, didn't get to Sri Lanka, thought no more of it.
Mm.
Then some days later, I turned on the TV and there was a documentary by Stephen Fry on Peruvian bears. Now, because of my background, I kind of like, ooh, okay, synchronicity, that might match up. I looked at Peru when I wasn't meant to, now this thing. So I got some brochures, and because I wanted to do, at least 21 days plus, I looked at them and it's like, I can't afford this. This is just too much for me.
Mm.
So fast forward a little while, and I had to change my mortgage company over. And as I was changing, both the companies messed up. So I got some compensation, which was the exact amount of one of these trips.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, I've got this money, let's book it.
Mm.
And then just before I was due to go, the girl I was working with, because I was doing office work at the time, her grandfather passed away. So she had to go and clear out his house. Anyway, she came into work on the Monday and she went, "You will never guess what I found in my grandfather's attic." And there was an old Peruvian map, which I've still got, and an old Lonely Planet guidebook to Peru.
Oh
And
wow.
it was like, if this is not more indication that
Yeah.
I'm meant to go. And when I went on the trip, there were 11 other travelers with me. There was a few couples, solo travelers, etc., from all around the world, America, Australia, Canada, Europe. But we just all clicked. It was like we'd all known each other
Mm.
at some point, and we were all meant to be on this journey together. Even our guide said he had never come across a group that just all fitted in so wonderfully together.
Mm.
And there were lots of various things that happened on the trip, but the main one was when we did the 4 day Inca trail up to Machu Picchu. I mean, that was an amazing journey in itself. Anyway, and it really tests, um, you know, your not just your stamina, but your strength,
Mm.
how you can cope, and also the people around you. But on the final day, you get up really, really early in the morning to climb the last bit. And you stand looking over Machu Picchu. And obviously you've got the sun gate that sort of like leans over and looks over. Now the sun rises every day. So obviously when it rises, it will go through the sun gate. But on this particular day, it went through at that most perfect angle that you see in the photographs. In fact, it was so amazing that there must have been 100+ people up there, including children, and you could have heard a pin drop. There was not a sound. It was just like,
Mm.
and our
Wow.
guide said that in the 8 years he'd been doing it, he'd only ever seen it go through the sun gate about 4 or 5 times, that perfectly.
Mm.
So went exploring around Machu Picchu, and I went up onto one of the platforms. And as I'm standing there and I look down, suddenly I was taken back in time. It only lasted a few seconds, but I saw loads of Incans below me, and
Mm.
I was addressing them. And it's like, whoa, that was, what was that? I've gone back in
Interesting.
time, and I've since through shamanic journeying, I was actually a priest in Incan times. But I came back from from that trip, and it was an October day, and in the UK, October is, by three o'clock, it's dark, it's miserable. It was stormy outside. It was really horrible weather.
Mm.
And I looked out the window and I thought, I would rather be out there than sitting in front of this computer. And with that thought, things are sort of like started changing, and I was able to give up the day job, go part time, and do loads of other things, which led me to Angelic Reiki, then Angelic Reiki to guide meditations, changing from tarot to oracle cards, future life regression, past life regression. So that really was the catalyst of the changes that started to come into my life.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Amazing. So interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how places can unlock these memories. I personally have never had that, but I know a woman, for example, she traveled to Egypt and it was like this portal, and she just had this remembrance of who she really was, and or had been in the past and what she came here to be. And yeah, so interesting and so fascinating, all the synchronicities that you experienced. And that's one of the things we did talk a little bit about, is just how synchronicities, that if we really pay attention to them, right, that the divine is always speaking to us. If we pay attention, you will begin to notice more and more synchronicities that kind of call you. But I yeah, that's amazing. And so let's talk about sovereignty, because this is something I think is just so important. And I know it can be a tricky path, especially at least in my own life, and working with teachers, being in a teacher-student relationship, and how that can get really distorted. And I know for myself, I really had to reclaim my power, my sovereignty in some of those situations where it's like, even though they had a lot of knowledge and a lot to share, there was always this kind of dynamic of like, well, I am the expert. I have, you don't know what I know, and so stay in your place and don't you dare be the tall poppy right in the field or whatever. Yeah, let's talk about that. What have you discovered in your path when it comes to sovereignty?
It's one of the most important things that we have to remember. I mean, life really, this human existence stops a lot of sovereignty, and a lot of it does stem from childhood. I mean, if we go back to my childhood, I was really lucky. Maybe it was because of my supportive family, maybe it's because of the way I'm designed, but I always was my own person. So even at school, if a friend wanted me to do something, I didn't want to do it, and they'd go, well, if you're my friend, you would do it. I'm not
Right.
going to teach you. Then my answer would be, well, if you're not going to accept what I'm saying, then I don't want to be your friend.
Mm.
So I was always that child that um, knew who I was,
Yeah.
and I was that child that had contacts with the cool kids, but also looked after the geeks and those that were downtrodden. I kind of like was a bridge
Mm.
between them, and that kind of like carried on, and I am literally a bridge. but I've never been afraid of talking about angels and unicorns and dragons and all this kind of thing, even if someone's been standing there rolling their eyes and, oh
Mm,
my God, she's off again.
mm,
It's never worried me. And that's something that a lot of people don't tend to have, because we are afraid of what other people may think of us,
mm,
what other people may say about us, because we want to fit in. We want to, you know, be that person that we look up to, that we admire, that, part of our peer group, without realizing that when we step forward with our own uniqueness, our own thoughts, we actually create better friendships, better relationships around us, because we're able to step into who we are, and we're allowing other people to step into who they are. And even if you've got different ideas to other people,
mm,
different thoughts, they can match together, and they can give you brand new ideas, new ways of working, of actually, moving forward. And no one has full knowledge. If you were to look at the greatest gurus in the world,
mm,
they still have to learn. They still don't know everything. And I'm always learning. I know lots of stuff, but then I'll speak to other people, have guests on my show, and they'll say something, and I'm like, oh my God, I never knew that. I thought I was an expert on this, but I didn't know that.
mhm,
And we have to really take responsibility, which I know is hard, because we are bombarded all the time with everything that comes into our life. But if we can actually go within, into our hearts, to actually go, okay, this is who I am. I don't care about what other people think or say about me. This is my truth, and I'm going to go forward with this. We need to remember, my truth is not your truth, and your truth is not my truth, but they are a truth. And those truths can work together and create a better environment for us, if we actually accept and acknowledge that we are that sovereign being, that we can create and we can do everything we can. And this is something that keeps coming up time and time again, in a lot of the readings I do with a lot of my clients. It's taking back control of your life, remembering who you are, why you are here, and taking charge of your destiny, and not letting destiny take charge of you.
mm. So how do you guide people to finding their true purpose? Because I know a lot of people, for me, I always had, very clear passions. I was very creative. I knew wanted to do art. I knew I wanted to work with children. I knew I wanted to, learn different healing modalities and so forth. For some people, it's not as clear. They're just like, I have no idea what I really want to do, nor do I really know what I'm good at, et cetera. It's not so clear. So how do you help people uncover that?
There are various ways. I mean, one of the ways is obviously past life regression, and that's taking people back to their childhood or to previous lifetimes to see what they did. You know, it, it could be that in a previous lifetime you were a herbalist. Well, have you got an interest in plants in this lifetime? Maybe you should look at being a herbalist. But also, looking back at your childhood can also give you an idea of who you are and what you were meant to be doing. So if I were to look back at my childhood, as a child, I loved reading. I mean, I was reading from a very tiny age, and I still do. I still get through a book every day, possibly two. So, what do I do now? I'm a storyteller, and I help people tell their stories. I loved kaleidoscopes. What did I end up doing? Angelic Reiki. I work with geometry, and the kaleidoscopes obviously gave that geometric shapes. I loved looking at the stars, at the universe, at the moon. My parents even brought me a telescope. What do I do? I work with galactic energy, with moon cycles. You know, you said I had that inquiring mind. My parents brought me a microscope, and in those days, you could actually have real scalpels. You actually were allowed proper things. And, and I cut my finger, I've still got the scar. And my first thought was, oh my God, blood. I can look at my blood under the microscope. So what do? I inquire into what's in the deeper things in people's lives. And then when I was at school, although I didn't really do any tarot reading or anything like that, the children knew that my mum did psychometry, and a lot of girls would give my mum bits of hair to do the psychometry. But my classmates wanted to do the Ouija board, and it's nothing that's not something that's ever interested me. But they asked me, could I come and make sure they were safe? What do I do now? I hold space for people. So when I look back at that childhood, they were little things that actually, little nuggets that set me on to knowing what I do now. I didn't have an idea as a child that I would be, working with angels, doing card readings, and taking people into future and past lives. But when I look back at those little things, they kind of like were little snippets. So if you look back at your childhood, what did you enjoy doing? What inspired you? That can give you an idea of where you're going and what you want to do. And then you can look at what you're doing now. Do you enjoy cooking? Well, maybe your purpose in this lifetime is just to provide beautiful meals for people. Your purpose doesn't need to be something big like, healing people, being a president or whatever it is. It could just be that you are supposed to be cooking beautiful meals. It could be that your purpose in this lifetime is to bring up your children so that, they can, grow and bring spiritual knowledge and information in.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be a big thing. It could just be the tiniest thing that is what your purpose is.
Right. Yeah. And what I'm hearing is it also doesn't have to be a job or a
Mm.
specific career. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. It's like your purpose. Um, I remember, and I think it was a conversation that I had with my father, and it was this idea that every single one of us are part, an integral part to the larger whole, which is kind of mind-blowing if you think about it, like how many billions of people are on the planet, and really every single thing that exists is the trees, the animals, each one of us have an integral part. Like there's no such thing as any one of us being unimportant or not significant. Yeah.
Absolutely not. We are all one energy. We come from one source. We just all vibrate on different energies, different vibrations, so that we can bring our own uniqueness. But we are a collective, and we are a collective consciousness as well. So the more people that have that positive mindset, then the more positive the world will be. If there are more people that are living in fear and negativity, then that's what the world, that's the world we create. We create our lives, we create our world. It's not, the world doesn't happen to us, situations don't happen to us. We create them whether we're aware of it or not. So the more you try and stay as positive as possible, even during the most hardest times,
Mhm.
even if you can find it every day, that little thing to be grateful for, to find that joy, to open your heart, that really counts towards the bigger picture. Um, because as you said, we, and your family said, we are part of a whole. We are all integral to the growth of the planet, of ourselves, of humanity. We just have to remember that we are that, and stay in that positive mindset as we possibly can. And I think that is one of our biggest things in this life, is remembering. So important to remember who you truly are, why you are here, and that you are part of a bigger picture.
Yeah, beautifully said. I'm really curious about angelic Reiki. I know nothing about it. I mean, I'm a Reiki practitioner, master practitioner myself, but I don't, I've heard of different forms of Reiki, and I'm curious if you could share with us about this one because you mentioned sacred geometry. Um, and I guess the question I want to ask, one is sacred geometry, is that like the symbolic representation of angels? Or what's the relationship between sacred geometry and the angels? And yeah, just tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, sacred geometry is the part of everything. You think about the flower of life, you know, you look at the patterns on that, and you then look at um, leaves and trees and things like that, and the pattern is the same. A Metatron's cube, which is part of the angelic Reiki,
Mm,
is a symbol of that divine connection, of that we are of one. Angelic Reiki is made up of so many esoteric um, wisdom, especially ancient wisdom that has come together. But at its core, it is an energy healing. So the same as with your Sai Reiki, we have the Reiki symbols.
mhm,
Again, you can look at them, that they're kind of like a geometry, because they represent certain energy.
mhm,
So angelic Reiki is working with angels, and angels are archetypes, and geometry is an archetype. you know One angel can do many things, depending what energy you give to it. The same as a spherical sphere could be a football that you play with, or it could be a cannonball that creates a misery. It's just an archetype, and that is and that is how angels are. So you could have Archangel Michael working for you, but Archangel Michael could be working for someone else as well, because it's infinite possibilities that can be used. But the main difference between angelic Reiki and Josai Reiki comes down to, one, the attunements, because there is no human attunement done with angelic Reiki. Angelic Reiki is done by the angelic realms for the attunement.
mm,
And when we do the healing, we actually just become that bridge between the angelic world and the person that we're actually doing the healing on. So I have no say of where the Reiki symbols go in a person. I have no say of how that healing takes place. The easiest way to explain that would be, if you came to me with a sore arm, as a human, my mind is, right, let's heal that arm.
mhm,
Whereas the angels will come in and they'll go, actually, we don't care about that sore arm. We think there's something else that needs healing, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, this lifetime, other lifetimes. And that is much more important for you as a whole to heal. And they will go and work on that,
mhm.
which 9 times out of 10 will have a knock-on effect on the actual injury anyway, because a lot of our injuries that we have are trauma-based. So that's really the main difference. It's working with the angels, and the angels coming in and them deciding what the healing needs to be doing. And it's more about them also allowing you, as the person who's receiving the healing, to heal yourself. Because when I look at somebody in angelic Reiki, I see them as perfect. Even if they've got issues, I don't see them that way. I see them as absolutely perfect. And that's how the angels will see us. and they will help work with the person for that person to do the healing on themselves, to understand where these issues are coming from, to know that they are their own sovereign being. You know,
Mm.
Angelic Reiki helps you remember that you are that sovereign being, because yes, the angels come in and help. Yes, I am the bridge between them. But in the end, you are the one working with the angels and allowing that healing, that information to actually take place.
Yeah. I've often heard from healers and people who are highly spiritual that that the angels are always available to us. We just have to ask, right? We have to give them permission to come into our lives. And I think it was just a couple years ago. Most people have heard of Archangel Michael or Raphael, or I don't know, I can't think of others right now. But I remember a friend of mine sent me this list of angels and what they represent, what they do. And I was like, oh my God, it's a long list. I had no idea. There's so many.
There are hundreds and thousands.
So many. Super
Yeah.
fascinating.
So many. And even though they've been assigned certain roles, i.e., like Archangel Raphael as a healer, Archangel Michael,
Mhm.
as a protector, if in a moment you need an angel and you can't remember which angel to call on, then
Mhm.
you just say, you know, you need some protection, but Archangel Michael, you can call on Archangel Raphael, Archangel Haniel, Archangel Uriel. You can call on any of the archangels, because again they're an archetype and they will help you with that situation. I mean, I talk to not just archangels, but my own personal angels every day.
Mhm.
If I'm looking for a parking spot, thank you, my angels, for that most perfect parking spot, and I will always get the parking spot. I always like to thank them in advance.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, you've already done this for me. But if you are working with angels, you do have to make sure that you ask for the right guidance. Because I made the mistake once. I was actually coming back from Glastonbury and I was on public transport. So there's a bus to get to the train station, and the bus was caught in traffic and running late. So, angels, thank you so much for delaying the train so that I can get it, or words to that effect.
Mhm.
Anyway, we got to the train station and my train was still in the platform. So I've run to get it. And literally, as I've got there, the train's run up, the train's gone. It's like, oh, okay. Anyway, so I had to wait for the next train. Got on the next train, the train got delayed. So what
Oh,
I should have said was, thank you so much, angels, for delaying the 12:45 train that I'm going to get so that I can get on it.
oh,
But
interesting.
because I said, can you delay the train to get me home? They delayed the train I eventually got on. So you
Oh,
do have to be careful about what you ask for,
oh,
because
interesting.
they are literal.
Interesting. I did not know that. So fascinating. Is it, well, here's my question. So are angels the same as spirit guides? Because when you hear people saying, "Oh, my spirit guides this and that," "Oh, I've updated my spirit guides. I now have a new team," or whatever. Are they different or the same?
To my knowledge and to how I work, yeah, they are different.
Mm-hmm.
An angel, apart from Metatron and Sandalphon, Archangel Sandalphon and Archangel Metatron, have never had any human experience. So they only know the angelic energies, the pure love for it, whereas spirit guides have often had human experiences, so they can relate more to us as humans. So
Mm,
they can be more, give us more guidance on that human level. So for me, they are different.
mm,
For other people, they may say, my father is my guardian angel. Well, that's absolutely fine, because that's your own interpretation and you can use that. Again, that's you taking charge of your sovereignty by going, this is how I nominate that person to be. But if you were to really dig into it, then angels are a separate energy
Hmm.
to spirit guides. But if you want to call a spirit guide guardian angel, then there's nothing wrong with that. They just aren't an angel. But if in your head that's what you want to call them as, that's absolutely fine, because again, that's you taking charge and going, actually, this is what feels right for me. So I'm going to go with that one. So I hope that's answered that one.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's interesting. That makes sense. I wondered about that. And I'm also curious about um do angels do they do they embody certain frequencies? Is frequency a part of their reality? I'm curious about that. Or does sound, or I guess the reason why I'm bringing this up because, I give sound baths in my community with the crystal singing bowls. And I've often felt that playing those bowls, it's almost like it creates this portal that opens up and creates a space where it's like being able to connect to the divine is so much more easily to access. I'm curious. And then I wondered, I just had this curiosity because I was thinking in my mind, we've all seen the experiment where, the sand on the metal plate that vibrates with sound and it creates these shapes. And so, yeah, I just kind of wondered, like, okay, I know this sound is creating some kind of shape, right, in different ways. And so, yeah, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, frequencies are so important. And yes, the higher the frequency, the more likely you are to get an angelic being coming in, or a being or that vibrates on that higher dimension.
Mm.
And again, we are water, and again, with the sand also, the emoto, water crystals, how they react to sound. And we resonate with different vibrations as to how we are at that moment in time. So, as you know, when you do the sound bowls, there may be someone that listens to one of the bowls and they go, "Oh, that sounds really horrible." But someone
Mhm.
else is listening to it and they go, "Oh my God, that was absolute divine bliss."
Yeah. Huh.
Because they're not ready to work with that frequency yet, or they've got stuff they need to clear and heal from
Mm.
to react to that frequency.
Mhm.
So frequency is so important, and sound is so important for us, which is why if someone's singing an uplifting song, we feel uplifted. If someone's singing, a sad song, we feel sad, because we pick up on those vibrations, on those frequencies. Everything is frequency and vibration. Something is solid depending on the vibration it's on. So when you're thinking of spirits, of angels, they work on a much higher vibration than we as humans. We're on a lower vibration, and like something like a table is on an even lower vibration because it's solid,
Mhm.
whereas we're literally not solid. So vibration and frequency are so important, and each individual, each object, each plant, animal, every single thing that exists on Earth, in the world, in the universe, wherever, is a frequency of some sort, is a sound of some sort.
Mhm.
And when we realize that, and that each one is its own frequency that can work together to create something beautiful, again, that is, working in community and working with others, and bringing all those different frequency and sounds together creates the most beautiful symphonies and magic that you can imagine.
Mm. Yeah. Amazing. Let me ask you, what kind of, before we close, what kind of offerings do you have for people right now?
Well, at the moment, I'm going to be running an Angelic Reiki 1 and 2 workshop. That's in person in Dartford, in England, in March. So I don't only practice Angelic Reiki, but I also teach it as well. But it is taught in person, it's not taught online.
Mm,
So I'm doing that in March. I'm also looking at dates to run an online future life progression um, training, which normally takes place over a weekend. And because it's online, it means anyone from around the world can actually do the training.
mm,
And that allows you to take people into future lifetimes, but also to do past life regression as well. So I'll be running one of those. But I also have a regular afternoon with the angels that takes place one Sunday every month. And again, that's either in person or online. So we do both. The online one is you just don't get tea and biscuits afterwards, but you join in with the connecting with the angels, the guided meditations, the oracle cards. I do an online evening or an online meditation, which is of an evening in the UK, which is one Tuesday every month. Um, I work online with all the services I offer. I do, whether that's angelic Reiki, card readings, guided meditations, future past life regression. So a lot of my work that I do is actually online. And I have a membership called Angel Wings as well, which is a community membership. And I've got some people that can come to everything in person, but there's others who don't live close who do it online. And we meet up. We have a live call Erin once a month. We have master classes. There's just so much. And we have a WhatsApp group that is so amazing. I mean, everyone in there, even though they're on their own unique paths, they all support each other so, so much. And if you want to connect with angels, I actually offer a free PDF that's actually got a couple of guided meditations on there to help you to connect with the angels or spirit guides. And that's absolutely free for everyone. And I have a lot of free stuff on YouTube as well, whether that's my Angels and Destiny show, where I have some amazing guests who share their wisdom, and you're going to be a guest on my show, which I'm really looking forward to
yeah,
having a conversation.
yeah,
I have guided meditations, card readings, another show on there where we talk about spiritual stuff. So there's lots of free stuff that I offer on YouTube, as well as my website. So lots going on all the time, lots of
yeah.
offers out there, and it's just a case of finding me and taking advantage of those as and when I offer them.
Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, everybody, once again, her website is radiantangelenergy.co.uk. It's in the description here of the video. And Ray, thank you so much for sharing with us your journey and just yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure and allowing me to just talk. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
you're so welcome. And to the audience, please share this video, like, subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. All right, thank you.